Today, we're going over the SSL's automation system, commonly referred to as VCA automation. I'm Tony, and I have my student John here to help us out with this demonstration. So the first thing we need is we need a timecode reference from our tape machine. So John is going to make the SSL's timecode reader patch. Go for it, John.
All right, I'm going to come from multi-track return 24. I could either take it from row C or row J. It's the same signal on both rows. I'm going to choose J just because it's closer to the reader patch that I need to make, which is P52. It says read input.
Excellent. That was C or J24 into P52, read input, or reader input. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Okay. Let's talk about this here. The whole idea of using console automation, which you're all familiar with as far as automation from Pro Tools or Logic Audio, it's all the same thing. It's when you play back your song and you record these movements that help finalize the song. Volume automation, mute automation. Now, on a console like this, on an SSL 4000, the only thing that we can automate right out of the box is going to be the large VCA fader and the cuts associated with it. So to save all that data, we need a disk. As you guys know, these SSLs work with what we refer to as the minis, specifically the mini reel disk. So John, what do we got here? Do we need to load one in? Do we have one ready to go?
We have one ready, but I can take you through the process of loading it.
Let's do that. Grab a chair, get comfortable, and load the disk, please. Okay. We'll let our
All right, so LOAD, press execute.
So that was load execute. You can also type mini execute to make that happen. So now we have a functioning disk here. And John, why don't you make yourself the engineer on the list page here?
Okay. EN is the abbreviation I'll use, and then my name.
Yes, and today's assistant is going to be, who do you want to, why don't you make it Hugh?
Hugh.
Yeah.
Do it Hugh.
Yeah,
right.
A British name.
Right.
Hugh, H-U-G-H. And last name, okay. All right, just Hugh.
Right, but I can edit this still.
Can you edit it, please?
I could.
Let's edit that. Let's.
All right.
Assistant is Hugh. First name Hugh.
All right.
And then last name is Jazz.
Oh, nice. I like jazz.
Very good. All right. Now we have an assistant.
All right.
Okay. We also need a title to work with. A title is a folder. All our session data gets saved to that. It's also a song. So why don't you create a title with all the information you need today?
Okay. All right, so the song is Come Together.
It is Come Together.
Right, so I will choose name title.
Name title.
Come Together.
Now, you definitely need a start and end time once it comes to automation.
Right.
We need to know the domain of where this automation is going to be recorded. So continue with the start and the end time.
Okay, so the start starts from 5 minutes and 25 seconds.
Literally from.
And it's going to go to, which is the end time, 12 minutes and 10 seconds. Okay, and then execute.
Execute.
And there was an existing title in there already, which I don't need anymore. It's asking me if I want to replace it. I'm going to say yes.
Are you sure?
I am sure.
Why is it asking you twice, John?
In case I made a mistake.
That's right.
I wasn't thinking clearly, but I know for sure that was just a test run I did earlier that I'm okay with deleting. Chances are you're going to be working off a fresh disk where there will be nothing there. It's not going to ask any questions.
There you go. Do it.
All right. Now look at that.
Look at that. Today's first insult.
Right.
Of many.
Right.
You should fix that.
I had to show you an insult. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and do it one more time and answer the question correctly.
Yes.
All right.
Please do. Let's see if John does it right this time.
I'm going to say yes.
Oh, very good. This could take a little time, it says. And lo and behold, a working title.
There we go.
Very good, very good. Now, if this was a real mixing session, we would now proceed to mix our song. Get faders up, panning, dynamics, EQ. But to expedite the process, John, why don't you get a killer mix happening for us right here? Let's get some fader levels happening.
Okay. All right. I have my master fader up. I'm going to give myself a little bit of volume because I like to build my mix and listen to everything that I'm doing. Notice on the time code, it's at 0. That's because I haven't played any tape yet. The computer has no idea where we are. We do have our time code patch. When I press play, it will be updated. So I'm going to do that. Now the computer knows where we are. We are not at the beginning of the song yet. I want to be at the beginning. So to get to the beginning, I'm going to use the command go to title.
Now, before you do that, we want to enable transport control between our SSL and our Studer tape machine.
We do.
How do we do that?
We're going to use tape enable.
Tape enable in the master section. Let's point that out one more time to the
Okay.
crowd there. There we go. Tape enable. Very good. Giving our handy cameraman.
Right. If you do not have tape enabled press, you still have manual transport control, but the computer does not have permission to access the tape machine.
We
unless-
need that today for the
machine.
automation system.
Correct.
So tape enable, burst the time code so the computer knows where it's at. Proceed.
Go to title, execute.
So John's going to work on a getting a rough mix up, or a static mix, as I like to call it. So let's do that. Excellent.
Here come old flat top Pico, grooving up slowly. He got
we're good. Okay. So John, let's also, just for the demonstration purposes, let's pull up a couple faders on the right side of the board as
Sure.
well.
All right.
Very good.
And, okay.
Are we good?
Would you like me to group any? The drums, maybe.
Let's group the drums. Let's assign the drums to VCA group number 1.
Okay.
So what John's doing, he's going through the thumb wheels. He's assigning them all to 1.
Okay. Don't get confused with I, which is the red, which almost looks like a 1. We want to make sure that it is actually number 1.
Right. So the I stands for independent.
And we're going to put this on VCA 1. Okay.
Excellent.
And VCA 1, we are leaving the thumb wheel at 0. We don't need to assign
right.
it to itself, because if we assign it to itself,
What'll happen?
what'll happen? Well, if you assign it to I, you disconnect it from automation.
That's right.
And you also disconnect it from VCA trim. If you assign it to itself, it will just disconnect from VCA trim.
It is independent. Okay, so let's proceed, shall we?
Sure.
So the whole idea of this demonstration here today is to focus on the automation system here. So in your regular mixing clinics, we'll go way more in depth into other artistic techniques that we incorporate. But today's focus is to get into the automation system. So here we go. So what we have up here right now is what's called a static mix. As the word static means something that's not moving. So I'm going to make some parallels today with your DAWs, and I'm always going to lean towards Pro Tools, especially in a mixing environment. So when you work in Pro Tools, you don't start drawing automation right in. You work on a mix. You put your faders where you balance them where you think they need to be. Then, as that's established, you start creating automation after that, or towards the tail end of your mix there. So that is a static mix where you place all your faders there, and that's what John has happening right now. But what we need to do on an SSL computer is actually tell it that, hey, this is the foundation that we're going to build upon. We gotta write that data. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. We're gonna look at something that's called a new mix. So a new mix is a first pass of automation. A new mix is a static pass. So there's a two-step procedure here. First, we're going to turn on the automation system. So let's pan on the controls there. And we're going to do that with this button here called the Mix On Off button. So go ahead. Yeah, and it's called on off because you toggle it once, it turns on, you toggle it off, you toggle it again, and it turns off. Now, you're probably wondering why not call this automation on and off? It's called Mix On Off. And up on the screen, you can see it says Mix Enabled. What I want you to do for this experience is we're gonna be a little bit more British here. We're going to replace automation with mix today. So think of that word mix as automation. Some engineers refer to the process of mixing as balancing. You balance your song. You know, you could say I mix my song, or somebody can also say I balance my song. And in some circles, when they say I'm in a mix, it actually refers to automation. Not everybody's going to do this, and it's definitely more of an old school kind of philosophy, but it applies right now. So when you see mix in our notes, in our keynotes, and it refers to SSL, and on the screen up here, it means automation. So what John has done for us here is the automation system is enabled, okay? And that was that mix on off button. Now, to finalize creating a new mix, we're going to start from the top of the title. We're going to start from the beginning of the song, right? So let's employ one of our favorite commands to go to the top of our title, John. And what's that going to be?
Go to title.
Amazing.
Execute.
Yep. All right. So now we're going to rewind to the top. Studer's going to park. Notice it says ready, but more importantly, it's what it says here. It says, hey, we're creating a new mix. So clearly we're about to create a new mix. And it says you may adjust your status. That means you have a choice. So let's go over that. Let's pan back down to the faders. And you'll notice that right now, all the red LEDs are lit up. And if you could see it, which I'm sure you can, there's an abbreviation next to it that says ABS, which is short for absolute. Okay, this is a status on an SSL. It's an automation status, okay? It's called absolute. Now, the computer said you may toggle your, or you may adjust your status now. So there's two ways of adjusting the status here. First, you could do it individually on a channel by channel basis. And you'll notice that there's a button next to each fader. Yep, that button is called the FSB, Fader Status Button. And you'll notice that it'll toggle something to happen here. Go for it, right? Red light off, red light on. And you can also globally toggle this if you don't want to do them all individually. You could do this with a global feature called the FSM, which stands for Fader Status Master, which will do all of them. Okay, there you go. And what you could do, let's turn them all off again, John, is now you can individually toggle just a couple easily this way. Let's say maybe you wanted to just automate your vocal in this pass. Now, the red LED, as we discussed, was absolute. The no LED option actually has a name. It's called manual. And in our keynote, which you will experience in our classes, is that the equivalent is the red LED absolute is equivalent to Pro Tools right, and the no LED is like putting Pro Tools in automation off. Okay, so no automation on any channel that is in manual mode. You can still manually use it, but it's not going to be writing any automation. Cool? Okay, so let's proceed by putting everything back in absolute. Very good. Now, let's do what it says up here. Press execute to continue. Very good. I want to note here, let's stay on the screen here. Let it roll, John, but dim our levels. Notice that it says mix running. We're moving forward. You see our SMPTE time code happening, and then you see the famous SSL bar graphs. These bar graphs represent volume, right? This computer was created in the 1970s, and they had to give the engineer a visual, a graphic representation of level adjustments, which we'll see later when we continue here. You'll also notice that at the conservatory, there's numbers up here and down here. These numbers just refer to your channels, but you'll notice that we opted just to have the odd channels up, so it's just easier on the eyes. So when you get down here, you know, you don't have a bunch of threes. You know, I think we can all understand that this is channel 33, that would be 34 and 35, etc., etc. P1, 2, 3, and 4 refers to the 4 stereo patchable VCAs on this console here, right? Let's point that out to the students there. Very good. And then VCA, the V stands for VCAs, right? The VCA masters right there. And clearly the M stands for, no jokes, the main VCA fader. All right. So, John, go ahead and stop, please. Okay. The whole idea of a new mix is to cover the entire length of the song and record the position of these faders across the whole thing, right? Now, so all you got to do is get from the beginning of the song to the end, right? And there's a lot of ways we can do this. We could let it play. We could fast forward. But we also know of a little shortcut that the industry uses just to kind of expedite this process. This is a computer, right? It's an old one, but it's still a computer, so it's a non-linear device. And tape machines and film machines, those are linear devices. So what SSL has is just a little bit of what we like to call a cheat code that just lets you get to the end quickly and write this automation to end. Okay, so John's going to walk us through that. I'm gonna let our cameraman pan down there. And John, why don't we walk through the famous shortcut? Should we call it the Jedi command? Is George Lucas going to come after us? Or Disney? No, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Yeah, it's for educational purposes.
I think they used one of these consoles to make the movie at some point, somewhere in there. They should be okay with it.
There we go. We'll go with that.
Okay, so the Jedi command. The command is name, here, and title. And if you look at the keyboard, name, here, and title, that forms a J. So we call that the Jedi command.
J for?
Jedi.
Oh, wow. Yes. So let's do this. Why don't you type the command out, but don't hit execute.
Okay.
All right, and now let's pan back up here to the SMPTE window. Now, you guys all notice that we're currently parked at 7 minutes and 7 seconds, right? Now, what was the original end time of the song?
12:10.
12:10. Now watch, when John hits execute, go ahead. Boom. Notice that the screen changed to 12:10 right away. But what it did, folks, is it wrote these static levels across the entire length of the song. So our foundation is now laid, and we could build upon that, right? So that is the whole idea of a new mix. Now, we have to save our work, right? So once you get to the end of the title, John, how would we save a passive automation?
End.
You hit end. Are you saying when you get to the end?
When you get to the end, you press end.
Yep.
All right.
We're going to cringe when we see this.
Okay.
Name of mix. Ooh, what do you want to call this?
I'm going to call it first pass.
First pass.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right.
Very good. Witty. Excellent. And there it is, right? We're still up on the screen here. First pass.
You know what? I think I've changed my mind.
Wait, you don't want to call it first pass?
No.
You want to rename it?
Yeah, I want to rename it.
How would you rename a mix?
Well,
what is it?
I want to rename it to static pass. I think that
Static
sounds
pass.
cooler.
Okay, so
Right, that's more like a 9 Inch Nails type of mix, right?
static pass?
Yeah.
Static pass?
Yeah.
Okay. What would first pass then be? Very basic.
Yeah.
You don't want to be basic. Go ahead, change it.
All right. All right, so mix, and I'm going to use abbreviations, F space P for first pass, and then I'm going to do name, and I'm going to call it static pass.
Let's see if this works, kids. Ooh, you know what you're doing. All right, very good. So we renamed that with the You always, to rename anything, you always start with what it is, right? Is it a mix? Is it a setup? Is it a cue? Is it a title? So John did mix, then the old name, then name, the new name, execute. Thank you. Very good. Now, the other thing we have to address is because you were a sneaky engineer and you used that Jedi command, the computer thinks that we're parked at 12 minutes and 10 seconds, but we know that on the actual physical tape, that is not where we're at. So once you save it, right, the only stipulation to using that Jedi command is that once you save it, you've got to kind of give the computer a taste of time code. You gotta show it where it's actually at. And how do we do that?
All we have to do is press play to update the time code.
So after you use the Jedi command, you've got to give it a blast of time code?
Yes, we do. Yep, and I'll bet you it's somewhere around 7 minutes and 7 seconds, somewhere around there. Right around there. Maybe not exact, but close. So let's find out. I was really close. I was
it's
off
like
by
you
a
were
second.
paying attention. Very good. Okay, so again, all kidding aside, after you use the Jedi command, you got to give it a blast of time code so it knows where it's actually at. So that's it. New mix completed. New mix completed. Now, that's how you successfully save one, but I'm also going to show you how to dump it and get rid of it if you don't want to save it. So let's go over that real quick here, John. So the automation is still on. Let's create another new mix. Okay. So let's take us back to the top of the title.
Okay.
So go to title execute. Very good. So it's going to rewind to the top. You're going to get that familiar prompt again in the chirp, right? And it says executes continue. Let's go for that. Cool. All right. And why don't you move a fader and make a mistake? Oopsie, right? That's no good. I don't want to save any of that. I don't want that to be in my new mix, my foundation, right? Stop. So we're just going to cancel out of this mix. And we did that by literally hitting the cancel button, and the computer says you want to cancel. You confirm that with the letter Y or another cancel hit.
I'll use Y.
John went with Y, and it's gone. So there's no Command Z, so that's why it asks you, are you sure? So we confirm that, okay? So how to create a new mix and save it, and how to create a new mix and not save it, which was just cancel yes or cancel cancel. So anyway, new mix is done. Now we're going to talk about update mixes, right? So there's two types of passes of automation on an SSL. There's a new mix and there's an update mix. The new mix has to start at the beginning and go all the way to the end. An update mix, John, can start and stop anywhere you want. It doesn't matter where you're just stacking on top of the foundation now. I'm feeling I want to create an update mix at 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So what is the command to create an update mix?
So you want to start the update mix before the song starts.
Oh, what was the start time again?
Well, we can look at the mix. If we do list mix, execute,
there it is.
That shows us our start time. So
yes. I'm really upset you couldn't read my mind. I said I wanted you to create an update mix at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So, but thank you for the list mix execute so I can see it.
I thought you said 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh, it's recorded and it clearly said 6 minutes and 30 seconds. So.
I am the assistant.
That's right.
I'm supposed to make mistakes.
That's right, Hugh.
I'm really upset that I didn't get a bigger insult over this.
Well, you know, I'm a nice guy. So let's create an update mix at 6 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay.
So let's walk them through that.
Okay. So we're going to go to the mix, not the title. If we go to title, we start a brand new mix.
Yep.
We want to go to the mix to update it. So go to mix at 6 minutes and 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So go to mix at or from, kids, anytime you want, and actually any cue you want, right? So go to mix at or from, anytime, any cue, execute. Now let's see what happens here. It locates, ready, updating static pass, okay? So because John called our previous mix static pass, that's why it's saying updating static pass. It would say updating whatever you called your previous passive automation. So you may adjust your status again. Okay, let's pan back down. And now you'll notice that instead of red LEDs, we have green LEDs on the board. And those green LEDs say trim next to them. So the default status for an update mix is trim, these green LEDs, okay? This is the same in any automation system. Now, in Pro Tools, you literally have a trim option in Pro Tools Ultimate only. Well, currently, up till, let's see, Pro Tools 2020, it hasn't changed yet. So only on the Pro Tools Ultimate systems is there literally a trim option for automation. And trimming automation is technically not rewriting new automation. You're taking pre-existing automation and just making relative adjustments to it, up or down, or for you math and science people, delta values, right? Delta plus and minus whatever numbers you want. So if you put a fader in trim and you never touch it, it's delta 0. You do nothing. It just plays back the automation, okay? More on that later. But right now, once again, let's toggle through all the automation statuses. I'll let John show you how to do it globally, locally, and he'll explain what the LEDs mean and what we're looking at.
Okay, currently the green LEDs are showing that we are in trim. If I press the fader status, I can globally turn them all off. This is now manual mode, which means that no automation being written. I just have manual control over the faders. If I press fader status again, I get all absolute, which means that it's destructive. If there was any previous automation written, I will now overwrite that. If I press it again, I go back to trim. So that's globally. I can locally change one. I can obviously put it back into manual or absolute, back to trim. And what's really cool is I can run multiple statuses. I could have some faders in trim, some in absolute, and some in manual.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, so that's the statuses available on an update mix. I say we do what the screen says, press execute to continue. Okay, so the next thing we're going to show you is we're going to make a couple movements here, and we're going to show you how the computer responds with the tape transport here. So John, I think it'd be easy to do this to the drum set. So why don't you make some fader movements on the drums, right? So that students can see what that looks like, and let's write some cut automation as well.
And notice how when you press the cut switch, it looks the same as pulling the fader all the way down.
Yep.
So it's by looking at the screen, you may wonder, am I cut or do I have my fader down? At that point, you really need to look at the console and see whether or not the cut light is lit up.
Very good. Okay, so John wrote that automation because the mix system was running. We're moving forward, therefore it's automating here. So John, let's stop. We're gonna keep the camera focused on the screen here, and we're gonna rewind, and I want you to focus on VCA master number 1. And stop. You'll notice that when he rewound, you're seeing all the activity play backwards to give the engineer a visual of where they are. The other thing that's really important was that what used to say mix running is now saying mix review. And that simply happens by rewinding the tape. As soon as you stop and rewind and the computer sees one old frame of time code, it goes into a state of review and it shows the engineer the activity in reverse. So let's rewind a little bit before that automation, John. There you go. Good. Okay, very good. Yeah, let's let it play. Let's show them what it looks like. So now it's just playing back, right? No big deal there. Now, while it's playing back, let's have our camera focus back onto the faders here to show them the faders are not moving, okay? But the engineer would be hearing and seeing what they just did right there, okay? So keep keep it parked there on the faders. You're going to see something very important happen here. You notice we're playing back, we're playing back, we're still playing back, we're still playing back. And what's something that's going to happen here is the computer is going, or the computer remembers where you stop and rewind the tape, right? And you'll notice that right there, it snapped back into automation. Okay, let's show them that again. Let's stop. Let's stay panned on the faders. Rewind. Stop. Okay. Now, we're in mix review. Press play. The automation system is playing back. Okay, but you're going to see that when we reach the point we stopped and rewound, right there, it snaps back into automation. That's all done by rewinding and pressing play. Nothing special there. Cool? All right. Now, let's say you played, or you did that, you played it back, and you, me, the client, we don't like it. We want to undo it. Okay? Let's rewind again to a point before that automation, John. So he's watching the screen, right? Before all of it. There we go. And now John's doing it manually. You can use locate commands as well. You can say go to 6 minutes and 30 seconds. You know that that's before the activity that you needed. Now I said I didn't like that automation and I want to undo it, okay? Now, there's a little bit of an issue here, right? These faders don't move. They don't have motorized faders. There's VCA faders here, right? So you might already be thinking, oh, I know, you're going to hit that button next to the fader to drop it back in. That's true, but watch what's going to happen if the fader is not in the right position. John, exaggerate that. Pull the fader down to like minus, there you go. Now, John purposely has the fader in the wrong position, matching the actual level on the screen here. Okay, so let's pan back on the screen, please. Okay, now, John's going to hit the actual fader button there and watch the bar graph here. Go ahead, John. Notice that it jumped all the way down to match the physical fader position. I would not want to continue because I'd have a huge drop in my level there for my drum set. So what I'm going to go over with you is what SSL calls level matching, how to match the physical fader to the bar graph on the screen here. Okay, so let's, again, down to the keyboard here. Very good. So hit the FSB again there, John. Turn that off. Now, to level match the faders, in the command pad, there is a
Mix key.
Mix key. Let's point that out. Cool. And go ahead and engage. Now, notice John did not hit execute. It's just a toggle. You just hit mix, and it turns on and off level matching. Now, you guys focus on those faders there, and I'll let John explain level matching to you.
Okay, so you can see on the computer screen that the bar graph was a lot higher than where this fader physically is. And I have a green flashing light. So the computer is telling me I need to move this fader up to match that position. So as I push this fader up, now I see a red flashing light. Well, that means I went too far. So it wants me to pull it down. And now they're both lit up. That means I have it in the right place.
Solid.
Yes. Now, if you saw both these lit up, but they were flashing, that means that you have the cut switch in the wrong position. That's level match.
I believe you have a fader, that's all.
I do.
Now, John, what if you have a channel where both the fader and the cut are both wrong? Let's push the cut and screw up the fader.
Okay. Well, you would need to deal with the cut first.
It tells you to fix your cut first.
Right.
Yep.
And then you can adjust the fader.
So when they're both lit up solid, we know that the fader and the cut are both good.
Correct.
Solid.
Yes.
All right, good. And then let's get out of level match. Very good. And let's just stay right there again. So now FSB the drums. And when it drops into automation right there, there's no level jumping on the screen. It's going to be in the right position there. So press play, and we are now recording over our drum automation that we previously had. Now nothing's moving because we're not moving it, but we can perform new movements if we wish, and we'd be writing over that with new information. Okay. Very good. All right, so that is your level match right there. How you feeling about that?
Pretty good. And
good.
also, you can also turn level match on while tape is running.
While tape is running, indeed. Now, if there's automation playing back, you got to be careful because you might be chasing a moving target when you do that. Okay, so the other thing I want to go over is, go ahead and stop again, please. If we rewind, like let's look at our time. We're still up here, yeah. We're at 7 minutes and 24 seconds. So John, rewind this roughly to like 6.5 minutes, about a minute.
Okay.
All right, so he used an actual command, said go to 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Cool. Now I'm about a minute away from where we stopped the tape. A couple minutes ago, I mentioned that the computer always remembers where you stop, rewind, and when you press play, it's going to just automatically drop you back in. Okay. In this case, I would have to wait like a minute to get back to where this said mix running, dropping the whole board back into automation. Well, we can expedite that whole process. We don't have to wait for that to happen. We're going to introduce you to another feature here on the command pad called revise. And what revise is going to do for you, I'll explain it and then I'll turn it over to John to demonstrate it for you. But revise basically is no matter where you are in mix review, it's going to drop all the channels back into their previous status without any weird level jumps. Okay, let me rephrase that. Revise is going to drop the automation system back into its previously selected write mode before you hit stop and rewind.
Yes.
You want to add to that? Was that good?
Yes, and you can drop revise in from a stopped position on the tape or while the tape is running.
Yeah. So we rewound to the beginning here, or not the beginning. We rewound about a minute, I should say. So let's pan back down on all the faders there.
Okay.
Yep, and let's show them where revise is.
Okay, so here's the revise button right here. Okay, and if I decide that I want to do it on the fly while tape is running, if I press revise, there they go. They just drop right in. Or if I wanted to do it from a static position, I could just press revise and then press play.
Yeah. Very good. Now, one of the features I like about revise is that if the board's going to be dropping back into a trim status like you see here, you don't have to worry about level matching here. Okay? And to kind of show you that, we're going to do this. Let's do it on the vocals here. Let's move over just a little bit. Let's rewind the tape.
All right.
And stop. Okay. We're blatantly going to put the faders in a different position. Move them a bit. Okay. Okay. And when John hits revise here, go ahead and just hit it.
Okay.
Yep. They all fall back into automation, but the bar graphs, the levels on the screen didn't change. And what that gives you is it kind of expedites the whole process. It's a convenience. I've always seen it as a convenience where, you know, I just don't want to level match right now. I just want to put this fader wherever I want it to be, hit revise, and just keep working. See, with a VCA fader, guys, there's no audio traveling through it. I always tell students, think of it as nothing but a remote control for the actual amplifier. So I'm putting that remote control anywhere I want. When I hit revise, it kind of renulls that fader position to equal the voltage on the screen. So very convenient button. Anything you want to add to that?
One thing to keep in mind is the scale that's on your fader. It's logarithmic, right? So if you want really nice fader resolution up top, you can have large moves make small changes.
That's right.
Down at the bottom, small moves will make large changes. So right now, since this fader is low on the scale, it's not going to take much to make that vocal movement.
Exactly, exactly. So quite opposite, if you have something written quite low in the mix, but you want to make delicate changes to it, you can put the fader at 0. Actually, let's show them that. Let's rewind a little bit.
Okay.
You're good right there.
Right. I could actually show you on the screen if you want to see
Yes.
that. Like what happens
me
if
get
I
out
drop
of
it in here. I can make a little bit of a move. Okay. And if you look at the screen here, so right now, it doesn't take much to get a big jump. Okay. I'm going to rewind it just a hair. I'm going to reposition my fader up top and press revise, and now I can make huge moves, and you can see very small changes.
Yep, revise. Very good. All right, John, why don't we save this mix? I like what we did there. Let's go over how to save automation again.
End.
End. Let's do it.
End.
Name of mix.
Let's call it vocal rides.
I like it. Excellent. Okay, I want to create an update mix right here where we are parked. I don't want to go forward or backwards. I just want to drop into automation right here.
Okay.
How would we do that?
I would use go to mix from here.
That makes sense. Go to mix
Yep.
from here.
From here. This where I'm at right now.
Right. What about go to? What if we replace go to with something that's even more instant or immediate?
Well, we could do play mix from here.
There he is. I knew it was in there. Play mix from here.
Yeah.
I like that one. Can we try that?
We could.
Ah, I love it. So let's hit stop. Let me just explain that again. So because he did play, it's going to locate and start playing right away. Now, it didn't locate anywhere because he said from here. So the computer's like, oh, so play from here. So play mix from here. Very good. So now to finalize this whole idea of automation is we need a couple more options to get this across to everybody here. So quite literally, or literally, we have a mix options column right here on the screen, and you notice there's all these abbreviations: UA, RC, AT, PV, and IP. These are called mix options, and that's all they are, options for mixing. Almost like a little toolbar up there for us. And here's why they exist. Right now, we don't have a lot of automation happening, but after hours, hour after hour, this is going to start to pile up, and our mixes are going to get quite extensive. Towards the end of automation, the client, the producer, whoever's in charge, might want to edit a few things. For example, you might have a vocal happening, and somebody says, hey, I don't like that cut. Get rid of that cut, or get rid of that fader movement, but leave the cut. So if you put a channel in some kind of destructive mode like absolute, it's going to wipe out all the automation and write new data. But what if you only want to edit the cuts and not affect the faders? What if you want to edit the fader automation and not affect the cuts? What if you want to affect the faders and the cuts? So we're just going to go over a couple of these right here. So first off, how do you turn on and off these mix options, and then how do you invite them into a channel, which I have a feeling you might already know the answer here. So, John, how do we turn on any of these mix options? I'll let you explain that.
Well, we could use either a number or the first letter of one of those abbreviations. So, update by absolute is what UA stands for. So, we could either use the letter U to toggle it on or off, or since it's the first one in that list, we can use the number 1. So it doesn't matter which one you choose, you can use either.
So first letter or the numerical value of the position that it's in.
Correct.
Okay, so very good. So that's how you toggle them on and off. So now let's get into each one and their specifics here. So like John just mentioned, we turned on a feature called, or a mix option called Update Absolute. So let's pan down to the faders and notice that everything is green in trim, okay? Let's say again, John, do you want to do this on the drum master, or
Sure.
I don't care
Yeah,
what
we can
channel.
do the drums.
Okay.
Yep.
So how would you invite update absolute into the drums?
Well, I would use the FSB.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Notice that it went from green to red, absolute. Guys, remember, red in audio usually means you're recording something, right? And not only are you recording here, that's really destructive. Now, update absolute is going to write over everything, both fader and cut automation.
Correct.
Very good. So that's the most destructive one out of all of them up there.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Now, John, what if I wanted a mix option that would edit the cut automation but leave my faders alone? For example, your second vocal over here. I want to edit the cuts but not touch the faders. What would I do? Let's pan back up here.
Okay. I would choose RC, which stands for Revise Cuts.
Revise cuts.
Right. So
Gotcha.
I'm going to turn off Update by Absolute.
Uh-huh.
Press 1. I'm going to choose Revise Cuts. I'll use a letter for this example.
So R or 2.
Right.
Okay. And now we want to invite that into channel 19, our second vocal here. So we'll wait for camera. All right. There it is. Notice that it's green and red there, right? And also, is it in the frame that the drums are still in absolute? Let's look at that. Notice that the drums are still in absolute, red LED, but the secondary vocals there are green and red, which is the visual representation for revise cuts. So if we continue, we will be editing the cuts, and what's up with the faders?
Nothing. Nothing will happen with the fader there.
Okay, so that's how they're safe.
Right.
Cool. All right.
As long as we don't move it,
Why is that?
because it's in trim mode.
Oh, so the fader is in trim mode.
It is in
So
trim.
like I said earlier, if something is in trim and we don't move it, it's nothing.
Correct.
It's delta 0. Yeah. Very good. Now, the main vocal next to it, right? My challenge for you is I want an option that will keep my cut automation. I love the cuts we wrote on the vocal, but I want to edit the faders. So I want to keep the cuts, but edit the fader automation.
I would use Play Cuts Only.
Play cuts only. Go ahead.
All right.
Go over that one.
All right, I'm going to have to actually select 2 mix options to make this happen. I'm going to use Update by Absolute and Revise Cuts together. So I'm just going to press the number 1, and now it says Play Cuts Only.
Why did you only press 1?
Well, I didn't want to disable the other one.
So as long as you turn both of these on, this is called play cuts only. So you could do 1 and 2, UR, U2, 1R, whatever.
Correct.
Okay, very good. And back to the faders. So, all right, so on the main vocal, okay, FSB again. Ooh, I noticed a difference there.
Right.
A solid red and a flashing green LED. Yes, so that is the visual for play cuts only. Yep.
Yes.
So if we continue with that, right, we would, well, hence the name, play back the cut automation, and the faders are in what mode?
Absolute. So we are
Destruct.
going to destroy any previous automation
On the faders.
on the faders,
That's right.
but the cuts are safe.
Cool. So that's, let's see, update absolute, that edits faders and cuts. Revise cuts, edits your cuts, leaves your faders alone. Play cuts only, hence the name, leaves your cuts alone, plays them back, and your faders are
Absolute.
absolutely destructive. I did say that. Okay. All right. Hey, John, let's turn those off. Is there a shortcut or something we can use to like wipe those out? Hit 0 on the numeric keypad. Let's move on here. Let's go over AT. AT is an abbreviation for auto takeover. SSL's version of touch in Pro Tools or other automation systems. It's when you want to make a fader movement and you let go and you want it to revert back to its original starting point here. So John, go ahead and turn on auto takeover.
Okay. I can use 3 or A. I'll use 3. Okay. So auto takeover uses null point automation. So what it means is that if I was in absolute mode and I wanted to come out of writing that move, I might not be level matched to where I need to be, and I could have a big jump in level. I wouldn't know exactly where to move this fader to come out. If I use a mode called auto takeover will tell me, using the level match feature, which direction I need to move my fader, and as soon as I match that point where the automation was written, the computer automatically takes me out. So auto takeover. So I'm going to make a move on the vocal track here. Okay. And now I get a green light telling me I need to push the fader up, so I will. And as soon as I cross that point, it automatically takes me out,
ensuring a smooth transition to the original level there.
Correct.
Let's do another one with it showing you pulling it down.
Okay. All right.
And that's it. So you notice that the LED's turned off, so as soon as you cross what SSL calls the null point, it creates a smooth transition to the original start point. Good?
Yes.
Okay. Let's pan back up here, please. So we're done with auto takeover there. So John, why don't we turn that feature, that mix option off? And let's turn on the next one, PV, which is short for preview.
Okay. So,
Good. So preview, hence the name, lets you try something out, lets you audition, rehearse, practice. So let's say you and your client are trying to figure out if this specific movement is what's necessary, but you don't want to commit it yet. You're not feeling very secure about it yet. You can preview the movement before actually doing it. So I'll let John explain preview or demo preview to you guys.
right. So obviously I don't want to write any automation. I'm just kind of playing around, wanting to hear or practice something. So I can invite, maybe I'm unsure of my bass and my guitar levels, but let's mess around with like drums and vocals.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm going to invite these guys in, and notice how I have a green flashing light. That means these faders
So instead of solid, it's just blinking at you.
correct.
Okay.
These are in preview. So now, if I move these faders, I can hear a difference.
But none of that's being automated.
Right, and if you looked at the screen, nothing's moving on the screen.
It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Preview. Good. And how do we get those channels out of preview?
Well, we could press the FSB buttons.
Let's do it. Yeah, solid again and solid again. And then how would we turn off preview as a mix option?
We could either press P or 4.
The same way we turned them on.
P.
Yes. All right. And there's one more up there. Your
IP.
favorite.
Yeah, the internet provider. Oh, immediate pickup.
Immediate pickup. IP, immediate pickup. Yes. Let's turn that on,
Okay.
and I'll explain it.
Okay.
Immediate pickup is a mix option that allows you to write
What I'm going to do is just go back into my mix right from where I am. I'm
Gotcha.
just clearing this so it's a little bit less confusing. Go to mix from here, execute. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn fader status off just so you can see immediate pickup. You want to see everything light up when I move them.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. So let's with immediate pickup. Well, you're on. It looks like we're in a new mix here.
Yeah, we are. I said go to mix from here, execute.
Let's turn on immediate pickup.
Okay.
I got you.
All right.
Okay, so with immediate pickup here, let's focus on the faders. Now, the whole idea of this, and what I call this is like SSL's version of latch. Rewind a bit for us. There we go. And now, if we press play, up until this point, we've had to use the FSB to always initiate automation on a channel, right? Remember, the FSB is the button next to the fader, right? And with immediate pickup engaged, John, press play. Move any faders you want, and you'll notice that they immediately start to automate. He never had to hit the FSB. Now, I called it latch because, like latch, you move something, you let go, and it latches. It stays writing there. Okay. If you want to stop writing on that channel, you can either hit stop on the transport or the FSB. So you don't need the FSB to start writing, you just need it to stop if you want. So it immediately picks up automation as soon as you move a fader. Don't confuse that for touch sensitive. These faders are not touch sensitive. It feels like it, it's pretty sensitive, but not to touch, to actual movements.
Could also use a cut.
You can also engage it with the cut automation. Brilliant. And that covers the 5 mix options.
Well, there's a whole bunch of other
There's
things
a lot
that this computer can do.
Yes.
This is just scratching the surface.
Yes, this covers our basics for the automation class, the VCA automation system, on an SSL 4000. Bye.
Thank you.
All right.